EU5 has made playing smaller nations significantly more difficult than doing so in EU4, as EU4 nations had access to both base income, as well as base manpower and base force limit modifiers to help equalize the playing field. Base income, manpower, and even base force limit is not given to any nation in EU5, although we must admit that the force limit is naturally not given, since it doesn't really exist anyway. Still, today I want to list the top 10 strongest unique location miners in EU5. My rules are simple. They're allowed only one location to be owned by them, but must also own at least one location. So no building-based countries, army nations, or things like Japanese daimyos. Subjects and personal unions are allowed, but you don't have to start independent either. That's about it for rules, but very quickly before we get into the list, well, a like would be appreciated and a subscription would be amazing if you haven't already. As mentioned before, the ambitious goal of 100k subscribers remains, well, ambitious, but I do believe. Finally, if you're interested in picking up EU5 or anything else in the Paradox store, please do use code Lemon Cake. It does help support the channel, but enough self-shilling. Let's get into number 10, the Republic of Dithmarshen. They begin the game as a subject of Bremer. They tend to conclude their game being integrated by Bremer. I want to say like 99.9% of the time, and the few times they don't get integrated by Bremer, that's because Bremer gets annexed and they get integrated by the other person that annexed Bremer. On first impressions, they don't seem to have much going for them at all. They are part of the Holstein culture groups, they have a couple advances over here, and obviously they have access to the German stuff that they would be expected to have. But of course with Dithmarshen, if you've played the game before, or are somewhat aware of history, they have access to the Peasant Republic government reform. This is accessible in two ways. There is going to be a dynamic historical event where you gain your independence from Bremer and obtain the Peasant Republic reform, which is fine. Or if you are Dithmarshen, you can actually just go ahead and right away, right off rip, become a Peasant Republic day one. The requirements to adopt the Peasant Republic government reform are actually relatively painful. You need to have 50% peasant power, which is practically never happening, or have the Peasant Republic reform already implemented, which means that, that's not helpful for you for trying to obtain it, or you need to be Dithmarshen, which, is what we're here for today. In essence, this means the Peasant Republic is, for intents and purposes, an exclusive government reform for Dithmarshen. And yeah, it's a good one, with a possible government reform making it an effectively free one. Does annoy your nobility a bit more and decrease their power, but it makes the peasants a lot happier, increases their power. That can be a touch annoying, but what's overpowered with it is the 10% production efficiency. This 10% production efficiency makes peasants' republics disproportionately one of the best nations for specifically, of course, you guessed it, capital economy maxing with 20% production efficiency from here, meaning that large urbanized peasant republic populations are the best in the game for stacking production efficiency and having very effective, productive capital economies. I know, the irony is palatable, but that's the case you have in front of you. Put simply, I believe an incredibly powerful build for Dithmarshen will be a hyper-capitalist Dithmarshen that goes into the Netherlands and forms the Netherlands. Specifically because, if we look at the topography of the area to build the Netherlands unique building, the Dutch polder, you need to be bordering a sea tile and you need to be a wetland. And this makes this section of Germany over here an excellent extension towards rightful Netherlands land. And it does mean that if you end up moving your capital to somewhere around here, this will be a pretty good place to set up your capital and naval push control for your naval capitalist Peasant Republic hyper-tall Netherlands campaign. Again, is this the strongest Netherlands campaign? Absolutely not. You're going to be starting in a very difficult position, but it's an option, and it's quite a strong one as that, because again, 10% production efficiency is just that good of a modifier. The other thing you have to bear in mind is that you start with no privileges given out, which is actually quite good for you. It does mean that you have an absolutely obscene amount of crown power day one, which is quite actually good if you want to be trade maxing, because you're getting a bunch of more trade income than you'd normally expect. That's good. And of course, not only that, so you can actually control all the estate privileges you give out, you start with most of your values pushed to the absolute extreme. You start with 100% free subjects, which may not be the best, but it's still there if you want to decrease your peasant food consumption. You have 100% decentralization, which is fine because you only have one province day one, and it's very good for obviously a vassal play. You have 100% quantity, 100% defensive, 100% traditional economy, so okay, it's going to be a bit harder to push out of traditional economy, and 100% communalism right off the bat. Unfortunately though, that's where the good news ends, because Dithmarshen is all potential and honestly not much more to back it up. Your economy is terrible. You start as a vassal that frankly just gets annexed most of the time. You're going to have a hard time trying to get it. If you wait for the event that makes you independent to pop, you're probably going to get annexed before that event pops anyway. You have a very small standing army of 418 levies. It's not the smallest we're going to see today, but it may as well be, and you have no extra military bonuses to make up for this smaller army. And while indeed, eventually, the fact that your capital is wetlands will allow you to build polders, which is a good thing, for now, it's straight debuffs, and while a grassland coastal location with oceanic climate isn't the worst province, the fact of the matter is you're making fish, one of the worst, if not the worst trade goods, full stop, inside of the game. So yeah, not the best time for you, especially in the early game. Still though, the economic potential of a capitalist peasant republic cannot be understated. So that is my reasoning for the 10th slot, but I can't really justify it being any higher than that. I've already expressed a decent chunk of favoritism towards Dithmarshen, but I think anything more than 10th is going to be unfair. So with that, we move on to the 9th slot, the Kingdom of Albania. No, I'm not kidding. Indeed, the Kingdom of Albania starts the game as a unique location miner, because if you look over here, you can see they do indeed only have just the one location, the town of Durrës. With that being said though, they do start as a subject of Naples, but they themselves have 4 more subjects, making them, at least in part due to those subjects, a very difficult country to play. Those subjects are not easy to keep loyal, but also potentially rather strong country to play, because you as a nation, despite being a unique location miner, are technically in charge of, well, most of Albania, that is to say, 8 locations, and that's pretty good. So despite the fact that your tax base could certainly be better and 325 army size is not the best, well, that is your main selling point. There's also, of course, your flag. I'm not sure what the hell is going on here with that flag design. It's just kind of gone with yes for its design philosophy. But still, it does squeeze its way onto this list because, again, just having those 4 subjects is quite strong for unique location miners. That being said, let's pop in and let's discuss your situation, because it's actually not that good. Of course, starting as a subject of Naples isn't the best for your nation, let's be clear, but in your unique case, it actually does help because it can help you deal with independence revolts within your country. In essence, if you have any kind of movement against you, or for example one of your small nations trying to declare independence war, Naples will step in and help you win that war, which can help you keep your own subjects in check a lot more. That being said though, this is certainly not an easy area to be playing in, because my question is, within this area, where do you go? You can't really go into Naples and into Italy as a whole, because not only is Naples your overlord, well, it's also one of the stronger nations in the game, and you're going to have a hard time beating them. To the north of you, you have Serbia, certainly no pushover at all, and you have the Byzantine Empire to your right, with Epirus, their subject, south of you. You are very boxed in, and are going to have to very much pick your battles and pick your wars if you have any hope of succeeding as Albania in this situation. But maybe you pick up some cool advances or unique content, or maybe even some unique government reform for your suffering. You don't. They actually have pretty much nothing going for them in that regard. It's purely for the Albanian name and that roleplay and overcoming the challenges. No extra savior is going to be coming towards you in terms of cool unique government reforms or anything of that nature, and the only reason that you've earned this spot at 9th on the list is because of your subjects and your relatively large size, given the fact that it's a unique location miner tier list. Another weird bonus that you have, but has to be talked about because it can be a negative sometimes, is of course you are a kingdom. But this can have issues. For example, within your expansion, you actually sometimes want to be staying on a lower country rank. There are some bonuses for doing that, which is a bit unusual. But this higher kingdom rank does come with a set of bonuses that you should be able to utilize, including but not limited to max diplomatic capacity, which is helpful for keeping your subjects more in line and loyal, some extra fort limit, and again, some cultural capacity. It never hurts. I do believe this is quite a unique campaign. In essence, you're playing in the middle with subjects of your own while also being a subject, and that doesn't happen too often within EU5, so if you're more of a CK3 enjoyer, this is something to consider, although do be cautious, this is going to be a very, very brutal open for you to partake in. As a campaign, in terms of its difficulty, this is going to be tough. Nations like Byzantium, which are somewhat usually known for their difficulty, are going to be significantly easier to play than you, so yes, a bit of a tough time ahead, but I believe in you, you can do it. But with that all said for Albania, we now move on to the 8th spot, and that is going to be the county of Lahijan, located in northern Persia. Although what is northern Persia is debatable, I've seen both this area and this area referred to as northern Persia before, but yes, over in this section over here, there is a small selection of unique location miners, of which I've selected Lahijan as my submission for the strongest as the ones in the area, as you do start with a subject of Langarud, which are able to keep loyal. They start slightly disloyal, but are able to keep loyal by doing this. You should do this. I'd recommend doing this for 0.09 ducats. It's a good way of making sure they keep, actually paying you, and when they integrate you, you have some free expansion as well. The area is quite a good area to play in as well, because Persia is a powerful nation. The entire area is quite a powerful area to live in as well, so bear that in mind, dare I say. And of course, your actual core, which will be built around here, contains 2 silk provinces, which is good for urbanizing the area and building them up and having a good silk industry. Nothing to complain about that. While you certainly don't start with silk, you start with rice. The actual area around you is also pretty good for agriculture, as you have rice, wheat, and some fish, so food should also not be too much of an issue for you as well, as you start to urbanize. That all being said, you do at least start independent, although nominally independent, as you are part of the Ilkhanate, so that is something you should be aware of and know that that's something you're going to have to deal with as well. Not an easy task, but certainly a doable task. You can also potentially even become a claimant to the Ilkhanate as well. Nevertheless, Timmy is going to, hopefully within your games, or maybe not hopefully, depends on how you want to play it, show up and add some more dynamic developments to the area, and in general I think it's a pretty underrated area to play in as well. But starting with a location inside Persia with another subject is a pretty good start, and while you don't have any unique content right off rip, no unique government reforms, I mean yes you do have feudal theocracy, but other people have feudal theocracy as well, eventually you can go ahead and form both Gilan as an intermediary step once you've united your local areas, and then reform into Persia or the Ilkhanate, depending on where you want to take your campaign. Again though, not too much unique stuff, which is a shame for this nation, but given that it is a unique location minor in the north of Persia, frankly pretty understandable. Still though, I do believe you're powerful enough for the 8th slot on this list, but with that said we move on to number 7. The Canton of Schwyz. You already have most of the Swiss flag, so you probably guessed what your campaign will involve, and indeed as a starting member of the Swiss Confederation, my suggestion for your campaign and a playthrough in this area would of course be a Switzerland campaign, a unification of the Swiss states, the formation of Switzerland, and playing around with this area, interacting with both the Swiss Confederation mechanics and the Holy Roman Empire, and all of the consequences of that. So why Schwyz? Why not any of the other cantons? Well, specifically, within the Swiss Confederations, there is a selection of cantons. So, for example, if we take a look at the Free City of Bern, which is a free city with 2 locations, an entirely separate debate, they don't have one of the unique country advances that we're going to see. We all have the Collegium Helveticum, an excellent building, gold to own it, cannot complain about this building at all. However, within this area over here specifically, these little nations have 2 country bonuses. And this one, the one I've selected for this video, has, in my opinion, both by far an excellent starting ruler, something you can't complain about, and on top of all of that, has the highest starting population and hence starting army, meaning that you're in a right position to unify the local area, being 200 troops or a 40% swing in terms of army size compared to your immediate Swiss neighbors. What is, though, more interesting and something they have to bear in mind within these nations, which is why I'm suggesting it, is you have a tier 1 bonus that you just start with, the Eternal Alliance of the Forest Cantons. To qualify for this bonus, you have to be one of the 3 previously mentioned nations, and it gives you not just 0.1 monthly prestige, which by the way is actually very, very strong, because you're able to use this to stack prestige decay, and in essence hopefully sit on very high prestige counts. With the way that Paradox has now dealt with prestige in EU5 post-release, any kind of prestige bonus is actually pretty good to be able to sit on those higher prestige levels, because prestige is pretty hard to get, but you also pick up 0.1 monthly diplomats. And just comprehend that for a minute, because 0.1 monthly diplomats, off rip, this is a first stage advance, you get this right away, so this is Age of Traditions, available from game start. This 0.1 monthly diplomats means you don't really need the diplomatic slider. Not that you'll have an expensive diplomatic slider being a small, unique location minor, but you just have these diplomats coming in from you from RIP from day one. And on top of that, of course, it means that if you ever do start paying 4 monthly diplomats and suddenly get a bunch more of them, this is going to allow you to improve relations with 2 more countries compared to normal, so you have an easier time dealing with aggressive expansion, on top of all the other Swiss mechanics that you'll be interacting with. You still have access to all the Swiss stuff, but I think this little extra bonus on top, for me, solidifies it as one of the strongest, if not strongest, Swiss tags. That being said, though, of course, just playing as the Free City of Bern, being a free city, so you get those bonuses while also having more than one location. An interesting setup, don't get me wrong, is probably stronger, but still, we're here to look at unique location miners, and this Eternal Alliance of the Forest Cantons bonus is a pretty good, I'd say comeuppance for being down an extra province. And hey, your starting ruler is certainly nothing to complain about either. To sweeten the deal that little bit extra, your starting province also produces iron, not a bad trade good by any stretch of the imagination, and you actually start with 2 market villages already built in your capital, which is not bad at all, and nothing I'll complain about, as well as of course also starting with a fort, which can be a touch expensive, but it's a fort in your capital, so it comes up with some pretty hefty discounts. For me, I think the potential power of the Schwyz in this area, combined with your extra unique bonuses, and the fact that you're not really in any under threat, there's no ill carnate, and you can take your time and expand slowly. The HRE is a pretty chill area in general because expansion is greatly slowed down because of the HRE mechanics themselves. Well, this for me is enough for the canton of Schwyz to earn the 7th spot on our list. But with that all said, we move on to the 6th nation, which is going to be the Lordship of Ayodhya over here in Siam. Your campaign and game plan as the Lordship of Ayodhya is rather simple. You want to go ahead and form Siam, and you already start the game with a province you're most likely going to be using as your capital. Now, just as a very quick overview, you do start the game as a subject of Lavo, and that looks like a pretty bad deal to be clear. It doesn't look like you're long for this world because of this starting subject arrangement, but you start with a whole 130,000 people within your one location, giving you an incredibly massive 3,000 starting army day one, which is not a bad army at all, especially when your overlord only has 2,700 men with a higher population, meaning that actually your independence was probably the easiest out of everyone on this list. You start the game stronger, which is a pretty good position to be in, don't get me wrong, and certainly within your independence war you're able to move in and integrate Lavo into your specific domain. Of course, it doesn't get too easy from here. The Khmer Empire is on your border, and your other neighbors, yeah, there are going to be no pushovers there as well for you, but still, you'll have options. For example, the Lordship of Supatunburi, I'm doing my best here, please, I'm doing my best, probably will be your next most logical place for expansion. That being said, while you still have access to the Thai cultural mechanics and all the Buddhism, Theravada mechanics and all of that, there is nothing inherently unique about playing as the Lordship of Ayodhya, apart from, of course, the rather obvious fact that your starting province is most likely again going to be the capital of your future Siam Empire, being a pretty good harbour capacity port for you to have inside of your most likely naval-pushed Siam. Although land pushing from Siam isn't a bad shout either. The capital itself, while it produces rice, is actually a pretty good place to have as a production centre as well, as once you've expanded and conquered your local province of Ayutthaya, you pick up fibre crops, which helps with paper production and eventually books, lumber, which is just a good RGO, and also helps with the same previously mentioned books, while also helping you establish a furniture industry, and clay, which is again pretty good for a construction industry because you're able to build masons with throughput production on them. You also have sturdy grain, which isn't great, but I guess can help you feed your people, although again, rice in your capital should help you with food too. Overall though, with 2.82 income and a massive 3,000 levy army off-rip, this is one of our brute force entries into the unique location miners in terms of its power strength, right? And while it is true that you don't have any, strictly speaking, unique bonuses, you still have access to things like the Mandala government, which are the unique governments for the nations in this area. So it's not like you're entirely without content either, especially once you actually go ahead and form Siam, which is probably going to be your local goal of the area, which includes a bunch of separate advances, like +2 dip rep here, some flat monthly development in H3, so you have a lot of time to use this, elephant cavalry, who doesn't like elephant cavalry, 20% dip annexation cost, which is ridiculously powerful by the way, some pretty decent monthly literacy tickers, and even some royal absolutism with monthly legitimacy crown power, and of course, right on the 6th stage after you've already finished playing the game, you can pick up, in one advance, 10% army morale and 5% army discipline, after, you've already won, but I guess it's there. That all being said, that's certainly not an inherent advantage of Ayodhya itself. Every other Siamese tag has access to these mechanics if they go ahead and form Siam. So for that, I'm not going to be giving it purely as a power level to Ayodhya. Ayodhya just makes up for it and earns its spot on the ranking just from its starting bonuses. Namely, of course, just its starting population and starting economy, meaning it actually has the capacity to act in a way that is not usually expected from unique location miners. Still though, you are starting as a subject, you're going to have a hard time getting institutions, you're quite far away from Europe, and it's not like once you've gained your independence and conquered the local area, you're going to have a trivial time expanding past that. The Khmer Empire, and again, your other neighbours are no pushovers. With that all being said, that is all I have to say about Ayodhya, and with that we move on to the next nation on our list, the nation that has earned the number 5 placement, and that is going to be the Thekana of Kuttanad within India. More specifically within the southern part of the Indian subcontinent. So why them? Because there are actually quite a few other unique location miners within the area that are technically an option within this setup as well. These guys over here with 100k pops, for example, this country over here, which has 92,000 pops, although they do also start as a subject, or even Kotayama, which is also a pretty decent selection, and frankly, if you are playing in this area and want to play as these guys instead, that's absolutely fine. Well, I'm going to be suggesting specifically the Sakana of Kuttanad over here for two reasons. One, compared to every other nation on this list we've discussed so far, which has a Hindu majority, just to quickly confirm, yes, they all have Hindu majorities, you actually start with a Sunni majority, meaning that if you want to flip into the Sunni religion off-rip, you can actually go ahead and do that rather easily. So that's something to bear in mind, and the Sunni faith is quite powerful. So if you're struggling in the area, it could be a shout, although bear in mind, you do start as Hindu to be clear. Well, that's not going to make you any friends, but I do believe Sunni is going to be a somewhat stronger religion. Nevertheless, the other reason that I'm suggesting this nation, well, for that we'll need to pop into the game, and not only do we see that our capital produces pepper, an excellent trade good, we'll also see that we actually start the game with a holy site. So there's that little bit of an extra bonus that, for me, is the reason I've selected this tag out of all the other surrounding tags for this submission. Now, obviously, selecting this country, in my opinion, on this list has disqualified all those other nations, because otherwise the top 10 of this list would have just been the other alternatives, to be honest. So I hope you understand that. It's for the sake of general interest. I'm kind of grouping them into one. But these guys are going to be my representative from the area nevertheless. They also have a rather obvious game plan, dare I say. Namely, you want to dominate the trade within southern India and start exporting all of this beautiful, beautiful pepper that you have so much of within southern India. So try and get a monopoly on that trade good and make absolute bank from doing so. You also start very, very close to the market center, the city of Kozhikode over here, meaning that's most likely going to be your first expansion plan. A bit of a difficult war, but I believe in you, you can do it. Or, again, the world's your oyster, do whatever you want, because you don't start as a subject and there are quite a few smaller tags around you to conquer and build up your power base. But you should probably do that, as Vijayanagar and Hoysala and the other nations within India are going to be breathing down your neck, so you can't really relax too much within this campaign. Still though, it is quite a powerful start, and it's powerful in a relatively deceptive way as well, and for that we need to talk about markets, and more specifically how spreading institutions work. If you're importing trade goods from a market that has an institution, well, you can get that institution progress, and in general, you're going to have issues, while doable, but still going to have issues getting institutions within India. However, this market of Alexandria over here, well, if you get your trade range technologies just around the time when Alexandria starts getting the institutions from Europe, you will actually have just barely enough trade range to start importing trade goods from Alexandria. And this will give you access to the institutions significantly earlier than you normally would if you're playing in India and waiting for them to spread from Alexandria down to Adan, down into Kambat, which is normally how they spread, or goes through Hormuz, for example. Through Baghdad and Hormuz is another path for the European institutions. So you can kind of jump the gun a bit on this as you'll be playing a trading nation. And that's, I think, is quite a cool thing to do, as well as, of course, being quite a powerful ability. That's certainly not something that the Siamese tag over here can do, let's be clear. Another thing that I think is worth mentioning for nations in this area is going to be found within the religious map mode. While we weirdly don't actually have any of the religion I'm talking about, we are purely Sunni or Hindu, if we take a look around of the other provinces, we're going to start seeing significant Nestorian minorities. And indeed, this was actually a thing that happened in history. One of Jesus' disciples did make his way down into India and did indeed spend this time preaching about Jesus. And as such, we're going to actually see the remnants of this with some pretty non-trivial Nestorian minorities still present within the southern parts of India. For me, this is an extra optional thing for your campaign. If you wish to do so, you can convert to this Nestorian faith. Is it worth doing? No. I'm just going to straight up say no. I don't think it's anywhere near strong enough to justify doing that. And if you thought going Sunni is going to make everyone hate you, well, at least there are more Muslims in India than there are Christians in India. Still though, a Christian trade republic in India is a pretty unique campaign in my opinion, so that's something to bear in mind. And hey, while it's certainly not strong, it's an option, so I just wanted to put that out there. Otherwise, a good trade good, a decent population, room for expansion, and you don't start as a subject. As well as, of course, while being far away from Europe, you actually do have access to European institutions. Because of the way that trade and institution spread works, you can actually get institutions from Alexandria. So that's quite nice. And I do certainly believe that's enough to justify the 5th placement on this ranking. But with that, we move on to the number 4 slot, the County of Waldeck. The County of Waldeck is a county within the Holy Roman Empire. Now, this county does not look very impressive right off rip. It is, of course, a unique location minor within the Holy Roman Empire. 33,000 population isn't incredible, but it's not an urbanized population. It is one rural location. That's all you have to work with, and you only have a standing army of 295 men. So yeah, doesn't look too impressive. Maybe they have some very powerful advances. How did they earn such a high placement? Well, they are Rhine-Franconian, that has some bonuses. They are German, that has more bonuses. All of these things are cool, but nothing really pops out. Why are they so high on this list? I mean, yes, they're in the HRE, yes, they have a lot of paths for expansion. Why are they so high up? And there's actually one very simple reason for why this nation is so high up on this list, and that has to do with the bullion famine in Europe. Namely, there's no gold everywhere, so gold is insanely in demand. And as you can probably tell by the fact we have insane inflation right off bat, we are on the top of a literal gold mine in Germany. Yeah. We're making 7.5 income off rip in 1337 as a unique location miner. This is by far the richest nation on this list. If you want to play as a gold mine instead of playing as a country, well, this is the nation for you. Why trade for money if you can just dig it out of the ground after all? The reality of the situation is this makes Korbach an incredibly strong province, a very desirable province as well, but it makes you filthy, filthy rich, and hence in a position to act and, shall we say, assert your dominance over the local states in a significantly easier fashion. Furthermore, while you don't have any unique content for Waldeck specifically, you have every single German nation, whether Saxony or Westphalia or anything that you really fancy, for your formables. So you can go ahead and form them and get their content if you wish to do that, or just go and show off your Waldeck supremacy. Truly, it's all up to you. But I have just one piece of advice if you're playing this country. Don't ban the export of gold. You can theoretically write off for it, but ban the export of gold. I would not recommend banning the export of gold. After all, the export of gold is 102% of your economy with a 2% margin of error. But yes, that is really all I have to say about Waldeck. You are just disproportionately rich for a unique location miner, in a way that's not really approachable by any other unique location miner as well. Those small Italian trade republics have absolutely nothing on your gold wealth. And again, just to really drive this point home, that's with 3 RGO levels. You can build this up to 10 without any RGO bonuses right off rip. You could get so much richer, so much quicker as well. But that truly is all I have to say about Waldeck, and with that we move on to the third nation on our list. We're starting to enter the real powerhouses now, and with that we're going to be moving into Anatolia and the minor Beylik of Tavas. This is another unique location minor. However, you are probably in one of the more contested and things going on areas. Now, you do begin as a subject. This is not a good thing to be, and you're going to have a hard time breaking free. You have 38,000 population, which does come to around 500 total troops. Not going to be enough to have an easy time getting your independence, but it's doable, especially with some well-placed alliances and some death warring, dare I say. Nevertheless, a hard time ahead of you, but the reward is that much greater. See, as a Turk in Anatolia, you participate in, of course, the rise of the Turks, meaning that while you have a difficult time doing so, especially against powerhouses like the Ottomans, you can eventually become that rising Turk instead and cement yourself as the prominent Beylik within the Anatolian area. A very rich and profitable area to dominate as well, and certainly a good heartland for an empire. Your capital province does also produce saffron. I mean, it's not gold, but it's not a trade good I'm ever going to complain about, so that's quite nice. But no, let's be clear, your economy isn't the best thing out there. It's certainly going to be an uphill battle. Still, if you don't want to play the Ottomans because you consider them too easy, but you still want to experience the rise of the Turks scenario and get to play around with those mechanics, well, I think this minor Beylik of Tavas is an excellent option for that. It's going to be quite a difficult campaign, so if that's something that appeals to you, go for it. But again, it's a difficult way of enjoying the Ottoman Beylik mechanics, and I guess if you do emerge as the dominant Beylik, as the Beylik of Tavas, it's an even bigger flex. So certainly not a nation that gets its ranking from inherent powerful modifiers or producing gold or having a massive population, but one from the sheer potential from the rise of the Turks situation. A difficult nation to play for sure, but one that is ripe to abuse the dynamic nature of the situations within EU5. But that's not actually the most overpowered dynamic situation that can be abused by a nation within EU5. Now for that we're going to have to move to our number 2 spot. And for that I've selected the minor tribe of Hunehe. Now, you don't have to play as them, you have a couple other alternatives, dare I say. The minor tribe of Odil is also a unique location minor, as is the minor tribe of Hojaon, but I've just realized I actually have 2 locations, not 1, so scrap everything I've said entirely there. Oops. Anyway, certainly I'm going to be recommending the minor tribe of Hunehe, as they have 57,000 population, compared to the minor tribe of Odoli's 29,000, so that's something to bear in mind. And compared to this minor tribe, they actually start within a Janzao confederation, and that's quite a good thing to be in, as this lets you call in your confederation members into your wars as well to help you achieve victory that you so desire. And why this minor tribe of Hunehe? Well, it's quite simple. You are Jurchen, which means you get access to the Rise of the Jurchen situation. And for those that are unaware of what that situation does, it's not quite called the Rise of the Jurchens, but I'm reframing it because you're going to be the Jurchen and you're going to be the one doing the rising. Well, there's going to be a bit of a change in administration in China. And hey, where China ends, truly, that is something that you get to decide. Now, I do believe that if you want to go for a real rise from a small, unique location minor to a massive global empire, the minor tribe of Hunehe is where it's at. Your Jurchen mechanics are very, very good for this, including some massive bonuses to cavalry with some extra unique cavalry types, and a Jurchen barracks unique building, which gives you ability to recruit said cavalry and some monthly manpower, Jurchen honor for 15% morale, no one's complaining, and a plethora of other bonuses like a leader under the sky, giving you 20% speed of integration, as well as a whole plethora of other bonuses for maintaining your legitimacy or republican tradition or devotion or horde unity or whatever you end up using. And if you do end up playing late enough for the 6th age of the game, a new dawn is actually pretty incredible. Most other flat monthly development bonuses give 0.001, which is a shame that it's this late, but being 0.002 is incredibly powerful, and 10% extra food is, I'm not going to complain about it, but it's not that great. Still though, more monthly development flat everywhere is quite nice. Bear in mind this applies to all of your locations, and I'd hope by that point you've taken over at least one China. So best of luck with that. Now there are of course stronger nations within this era if that is a campaign that you want to play, but for a unique location minor, having access to all of those mechanics and the ability to do that is certainly my justification for placing them this high on the list. Truly, when it comes to blobbing and expansion, pretty much no other country is anywhere close. But I bring this up because unique location miners, people that tend to enjoy playing them, tend to pick them because they want a unique experience with a whole bunch of unique modifiers and a unique campaign and game plan. And they also want to be quite powerful, compensation for their weaker starting position in terms of powerful modifiers and abilities. And for that, we're going to have to go to the number 1 nation on our list. See, it has been said that to be a real Champagne, you need to be from the Champagne region of France. Because if you're not from the Champagne region of France, you're not Champagne, you're just a sparkling wine. The same can be said for Mann, because if you're not from the Isle of Man, you're just a sparkling woman. Now, long-time viewers of the Lemon Cake channel would know that I've actually recycled this joke, but look, let it be known, I do support the environment. With that being said, why are we looking at the Lordship of Man for our number 1 selection? I mean, on first glance, yes, it does meet the criteria as a unique location minor, but with just 5,700 pops on it and an army of 88 people, not looking too good. I mean, hey, 20 starting naval levies isn't bad, and one of the things you may have already spotted is you do actually start with a union, the Manx Denbigh Union, which does give you access to, if you wish to push into England, and I'd recommend you do that later, and unite the British Isles. You have some landing pads over here, as this nation is a subject of Wales, but also is in a union with you, so you can kind of integrate them into your domain away from that subjectness. Still though, why is this Lordship of Man number 1 on our list? Well, it comes down to a very interesting thing. You may have already spotted it. We are Celtic, Scottish, British, and Scandinavian. This menu is absolutely borked. This UI cannot handle just how Mr. Worldwide we are. But just to be clear again, we are part of the Celtic culture group. We are part of the Scottish culture group. We are part of the British culture group. And we're part of the Scandinavian culture group. Now, this very unique combination right off rip gives us access to the Galley Lord's Government Reform for minus 50% build galley cost and minus 50% galley maintenance cost, meaning that you can just spam these galleys out everywhere and truly rule the seas with a massive cheap navy, as well as, of course, the ability to hire privateers to, help pay for that navy. And hey, that navy levy size doesn't hurt either. I will warn you, though, you don't actually have enough naval and belligerence day 1 to take this government reform, so you're going to have to do some little restructuring of your society to be able to pick it up, but you frankly probably should. And of course, being North Gale, you get the cattle bullion advance for 10% livestock output. I mean, it's something, but I guess you get it off bat, and you also get a insular monasticism advance for possible clerics in rural locations. That all doesn't seem great, right? I mean, yes, you have a very strong naval build with this Galley Lord. Eventually, you can kind of become a pirate republic because, let me just tell you, this isn't This isn't a major reform, Paradox. This probably should be a major reform. You could stack this with Pirate Republic. There's actually a very funny thing you can stack. The Crusade in the Sea government reform, for example, also has minus 50 galley build cost. Now, of course, the Knights are not on this list because they have 2 locations for those unaware. But yeah, no, you can stack this with other reforms like that. Thank you, Paradox, very cool. But of course, it's a difficult thing to do. But nevertheless, where does their actual power come from? Well, again, it's from the fact they're Celtic, Scottish, British, and Scandinavian. And for that, we're going to have to pop into the game. See, when we take a look at our advances menu, we're going to find something rather interesting. See, we're British. That means we get access to, for example, Peel Towers and everything else within the British line of advances. But of course, we're not just British. We're also Scottish, so we can go ahead and help with the conservation of Scottish salmon. A very impressive feat to do considering we're not in Scotland, but we are Scottish enough to get 10% more sailors and fish output. Not the best bonus, but just to again go to show you're the Isle of Man. You get access to the Scottish group advances. Thank you, Paradox, very cool. But you're Celtic. So you get the Furor Celtica over here for 20% army initiative. And yeah, you kind of get the point where this is going. Oh, is that Galaglass unique levies because I am very technically Scottish? Well, yes, it is. And is that Scottish courage for 15% more morale of armies? Why, I'm not complaining. Oh, and even more unique boats because Lord knows I needed more unique naval levies and boat types. And I mean, yeah, you get the point. Basically, your very, very Mr. Worldwide cultural approach being Celtic, British, Scottish, Scandinavian combines into you having a whole field of advances for you to fill out and modify and stack to your heart's content without needing to form any other nation. You also, despite being quite small and weak, do start next to Ireland, which is full of small and weak nations for you to invade and establish a power base in, as well as of course your landing pad into Wales, which you can annex with this union when you are ready to do so, and hence go and move into England, who's probably going to be a bit busy dealing with France, at least for the early parts of the game. Now, your economy certainly isn't great, but that's where your Canahire privateers is going to come in and help you fix that, if that makes sense. And you even make copper on your capital. Not the best trade good out there, but certainly not the worst one as well. Now, I wouldn't recommend keeping Mann as your capital. It is a very, very bad harbour, so yeah, not a good thing for that. Indeed, if you are seeking a capital, may I suggest the humble location of Pembroke over here. It has a 100% naval capacity, harbour capacity, for your naval pushing enjoying, and while it does produce fish on the actual province in itself, if you take a look at the province that it's located within, you have access to iron, you have access to silver for your jewelry industries, a very profitable endeavour. You have access to livestock for leather. You have access to beeswax, which is not the worst trade good out there, but definitely does help. And Fishguard, despite being called Fishguard, produces wool, which is good for a cloth industry. So an excellent place to build a core economic base around that isn't just an economic base of stealing other people's money. It's also certainly not an awful location again for a capital, being a coastal, grassland, flatland with an oceanic climate, so nothing to complain about there either. But with that all being said, that is my submission for the strongest unique location miner currently in Europa Universalis 5. So, what do you think? Any Ulms I missed that you believe deserve to make the list instead? Remember, Ulm, the actual nation of Ulm, is no longer an Ulm, a unique location miner, so it's not on here because of that. Either way, any actual nations that you think should have made the list, make sure to tell me them down below. I'll go apologize or correct you if I believe you're wrong, but with that all being said, that is unfortunately all the time I have for you today. Thank you very much for watching, with a special thank you to all my channel members, especially Ark, Solus, Lemon, Lord Zendika, Nick Hastan Hatan, Star72, The Awesome Rabbit, Best for Gaming, Grabmo Flavia, Labrule, W Haste, Sov, Anthony35, AC Napo, Conspiracy Pizza, Yukata, Danray, Marvi, Jack, Ryland, Stuart Allen, Andrew Black, Nebula, Zentronic, Twinet, and Aquapod.